Right now, across 3 continents, humans are trying to do something that sounds impossible. Take some of the driest, most lifeless deserts on Earth, endless seas of shifting sand where almost nothing grows, and turn them green. Not a garden, not a park. Forests and grasslands stretching for thousands of kilometers planted on ground that has been barren for centuries. It's one of the largest engineering efforts in human history, and most people have no idea it's happening. Here's why anyone would even try. Deserts aren't just empty, they're growing. Every year, usable land on the edges of the world's deserts dries out, cracks, and blows away, a process called desertification. It swallows farmland, drives people from their homes, and fuels the sandstorms that choke entire cities. Around 2 billion people live in these dryland regions, most of them in poorer countries, watching the sand creep closer. So the fight to hold the deserts back and push them into retreat isn't a vanity project. For millions, it's survival. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 of the most ambitious of these projects. One in China, one across Africa, one in the Middle East. How you actually turn sand into soil, and the uncomfortable truth about which of these giant green dreams are working and which are quietly failing. Because they are not all the same story. If you like massive projects most people never hear about, hit subscribe. It genuinely keeps this channel alive, and that's the only time I'll ask. Let's get into it. Start with the one that's working best. And it's not the one you'd expect. Since 1978, China has been building what's often called its Great Green Wall, officially the 3 North Shelter Belt program. It's one of the largest ecological projects ever attempted, planned to run for over 70 years across 13 provinces, deliberately planting a vast belt of trees and shrubs to stop its northern deserts from spreading south toward Beijing. The showcase is the Kubuki Desert in Inner Mongolia. It was a byword for environmental collapse. Herders with no water, no electricity, sand burying everything. Today, large parts of it are green. And here's the clever bit. They didn't just plant trees and pray. They pinned down the shifting sand first with grids of straw laid across the dunes, a checkerboard that stops the sand blowing away long enough for roots to take hold. They planted tough, sand-clinging species bred to survive there. And then they added a modern twist: enormous solar farms. China has announced a photovoltaic wall across the Kubuki, a strip of solar panels planned at around 400 kilometers long, targeting a staggering 100 gigawatts of power. The panels throw shade that helps plants below survive the brutal sun while generating clean electricity. Power and greenery from the same patch of desert. China now aims to restore over 70% of the Kubuki, and the model is studied worldwide. So it can be done. Which makes the next story, a project built on the exact same dream, so much harder to watch. Because Africa tried something even more ambitious, and it's a much tougher tale. The African Great Green Wall was launched to fight the desert along the southern edge of the Sahara in a dry band called the Sahel. The vision was breathtaking, a wall of restored land stretching right across the continent, thousands of kilometers coast to coast, aiming to bring back 100 million hectares of degraded land by 2030 across 11 countries. The dream was pure. The reality has been brutal. Nearly 2 decades in, the project isn't close to its target. In some places, journalists and scientists who visited the planted zones couldn't tell the restored land from the barren scrub around it. One geographer touring sites in Senegal put it bluntly, that in practice the wall barely exists on the ground. The reasons are painfully human. Money that arrived but couldn't be tracked, funding that flowed to outside organizations instead of the local agencies, conflict and instability across the Sahel, and the deeper problem that planting trees in a war-torn, desperately poor region is a very different challenge than doing it under a powerful centralized government. Some countries like Ethiopia have made real progress restoring land. But the wall as a whole is a cautionary tale, proof that ambition and funding alone don't green a desert. And that contrast, China surging ahead, Africa stalling, points to the real lesson hiding underneath all of this. Because the hard truth is that a desert doesn't become a forest just because you stick trees in it. Desert sand is barely soil at all. No nutrients, no structure, nothing to hold water. Pour water on it and it drains straight through. Plant a sapling and it usually dies. So real desert greening is a slow, technical craft. You stabilize the sand first with those straw grids or fences so it stops moving. You rebuild the ground itself, sometimes working in charcoal-like material and organic matter to help it finally hold water and feed roots. You deliver water with brutal efficiency, drip lines to each plant, treated wastewater, whatever can be spared, never just flooding it. And you plant hardy, salt, and drought-tolerant species that can survive the assault, not delicate trees that need pampering. Increasingly, projects pair all this with solar farms using the panels for shade and income at once. Do all of that patiently for decades, and the desert genuinely retreats. Skip the hard parts and just plant trees for a photo, and the sand wins. That's the whole difference between Kubuchi and the struggling stretches of the Sahel. It isn't magic, it's engineering, agronomy, and stubbornness, repeated over a very long time. And this leads to the honest question hanging over every one of these mega projects. Are we actually reversing the desert? Or just holding the line at enormous cost in a few showcase spots? The optimistic view is real, proven techniques, land genuinely coming back, millions of trees in the ground, people who were losing everything now farming and earning again. The Middle East has joined in too, with Saudi Arabia pledging to plant billions of trees and restore vast areas of its own arid land. The skeptical view is just as real. Some of these projects overstate their success, many planted trees quietly die, and a warming climate is making the deserts push back harder every year. Both things are true at once. Deserts can be greened, but only where the effort is relentless, well-run, and sustained for decades. There is no shortcut, and there is no cheap version. So here's where it leaves us. Across the planet, humans are waging a slow, grinding war against the desert, pinning down sand, rebuilding dead soil, and coaxing forests out of ground that hasn't held life in living memory. Some of it is working brilliantly. Some of it is barely working at all. But the ambition is real and the stakes, for the 2 billion people living on the edge of the world's drylands, could not be higher. If that opened your eyes to a fight you didn't know was raging, subscribe. This is exactly the kind of massive hidden effort I dig into. So here's my question for you. Should we pour billions into trying to turn deserts into forests? Or is that a losing battle against nature and we'd be smarter spending it protecting the green land we still have? Tell me where you land in the comments.